Hello. All right. Good evening for those of you joining us for the second time tonight. Thank you for coming back. If you weren't here to watch, Brooklyn just did the interview with Corey Villegas for LD 14. And now tonight, or now we're here back for our legislative update. And I am joined tonight by Cindy, our fellow co-founder, and then also with Aaron and I. It's Feichinger, right?
Yeah, Feichinger. It's good.
Okay. You'd think maybe after a couple more years, I'll be able to say it correctly. I'm sorry about that, but all right. I'm gonna let the two of you get started actually because I clearly have kids that are up from bed. But Aaron's joining us tonight to talk about the rental assistance, the attempt to get rental assistance here in Nebraska. Aaron, can you kind of just start out by explaining how you're involved in this?
Yeah, sure. So we've had emergency rental assistance in our communities and in the state since the Consolidated Appropriations Act of December 2020 was the first allocation, and that gave the state about $200 million total for emergency rental and utility assistance. 158 of that went to the balance of state, which is everything outside of Douglas and Lancaster County. And then Douglas County, Lancaster County, Omaha, and Lincoln all received separate allocations. So they're their own granting jurisdictions. Everybody except the balance of state spent their money already and received or applied for the second round of emergency rental assistance, which came from the American Rescue Plan Act. And we're about to, every community except for the state is on track to spend that money down as well. The state of Nebraska is one of two states that has not applied for the second round of emergency rental assistance. There's Treasury right now has about a little over $120 million set aside for the state of Nebraska. All we need to do is ask for it. So it's us in Arkansas who have not applied yet. And we have asked the state to apply. They have said no. And so now we are pursuing a legislative option to try to get the state to apply before the deadline, which is March 30th, 2022. So we are really down to the wire here. So yeah, I don't know what else you want to cover. I think maybe some of the arguments that have been presented against applying is that we have not spent our first round of money, which is true. We've spent about 42% of that initial 158 million. But that, in our experience, is not an indication of a lack of need for this money in the state. It is rather that we've designed, the state program is very convoluted and difficult to access, as opposed to the other 4 jurisdictions in Nebraska who, upon receiving the money, immediately contracted with trusted community organizations who are experienced at distributing this kind of financial assistance, as opposed to the state, which did not do that. The other argument against this is that we don't want to become a welfare state, which I don't really know what to do with that argument. This is across the state. We've seen an increase in need since before COVID. This money would go a long way to helping people keep a roof over their heads. 100% of these funds go directly to landlords to cover their costs. And it covers up to 12 months of back rent and 3 months of future rent up to $20,000. So it's a really good program. It's been really effective in it's been really effective for anyone who's received it. It's helped a lot of people avoid homelessness, and it just makes a lot of sense, I think, to apply.
I really appreciate you coming and helping us understand this tonight, Erin. And I guess the thing for people who weren't following this closely or even at that hearing for this amendment that was held like at least a month ago in urban affairs, there was a hearing, and trusted community partners like yours and others came and they spoke about the great need for this money, these dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And the one opposition was from the governor's office. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that I've heard a few people say is that they heard that there was going to be a program for homeowners and that that might help the landlords.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the case. Is that correct? They are two
No,
separate buckets of money.
no. Landlords would not their rental properties do not qualify for the homeowner assistance fund. So because emergency rental assistance or ERAP goes directly to paying rent, which covers the cost of mortgages and especially in smaller rental properties. ERAP is homeowner assistance for landlords, but they don't qualify for the the new program under
Right.
NIFA for homeowner assistance.
And the balance of state situation has been evident to anybody that was kind of tracking all this that the process has been so difficult, possibly even purposefully difficult for people to apply. And the representative from the governor's office kept talking about fraud. We're worried about fraud. We want to prevent fraud. And they've actually just prevented anybody from receiving these dollars because of some of the restrictive processes. Did you feel, or have you heard, do you know if they're improving that process for the balance of state? Will they be distributing those funds, or is that really just kind of going to stick the way it is right now?
You know what we've been telling senators who've asked similar questions is we can't even talk about improving the process if we don't apply for these funds. Our current round of emergency rental assistance will end on September 30th, 2022. So there's really not enough time to do a new process, not enough time to get people around a table and figure that out. We can't do subcontracts, anything like that at this point. But if we apply for these funds, then that's a really good opportunity for not only, I think, community organizations who are well versed in distributing these kinds of funds, but also landlords and utility companies to sit down and really figure out what works for all of us. I mean, that's something that we've done in Omaha. It's an ongoing conversation to figure out how to make this process as efficient as possible for everyone involved, not just tenants, but landlords as well. But yeah, I'm hopeful that if we apply, we would be able to improve the process and get the money to the people who need it. But, you know,
Because it's not that there is no need, it's just the process has been so difficult to overcome.
yeah.
Have the landlords been in touch with the governor's office and the legislators now? I mean, the landlords really are one of the largest groups that would benefit from this.
Yeah. I mean, you heard the testimony in Urban Affairs from the Grand Island landlord who had, I think, couple hundred units
Yeah.
and who talked about just the incredible effort that he and his team have made. Like he hired people and gave them laptops to go door to door to try to help his tenants. He said he spent hours on the phone with whoever would talk to him to try to follow up on applications and figure out what needed to happen.
Mhm.
And then the Apartment Association of Nebraska also sent in a letter of support for this effort. But I mean, I hope that landlords have been contacting the governor's office or their state senators. This program directly benefits them. I know that the process has been incredibly frustrating. We've been working on it for since it's been implemented, trying to make it better in the small ways that we can. Uh, but come October 1st, we're gonna if we don't apply for this, we're gonna have to start telling a lot of people no, and a lot of people are gonna be hurting. So
Well, and it affects, and I'm also viewing this from the lens of business, and that it is not good for business if Nebraskans are out of housing. The thing that I've been surprised about is that the Chamber of Commerce and some of these other organizations haven't been more vocal, because $120 million infused into Nebraska's economy is good for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I would think that, us refusing these funds would be frustrating to a lot of business owners in some of these communities, because they're not going to be dollars that those landlords would be spending at their companies. And we paid this money already. I keep hearing from the governor and various people, well, we don't want to, we don't need those dollars. We don't need that money. But Nebraska taxpayers pay federal taxes that
Mm-hmm.
result in these dollars. So these are dollars that we're already paying that will be sent to other states. Do you think that there's legislators that view it that way, or understand how frustrating it would be to taxpayers that we would be sending this money elsewhere?
I think that some senators have been convinced by the idea that if we turn down these dollars, they're not going back into the federal coffers. They're going to other emergency rental assistance programs, because that's what ARPA allocated it for. So it's a specific appropriation from the federal government, and they're going to use it for the specifically appropriated program, which is emergency rental assistance. So if we turn it down, we're losing out on $120 million in Nebraska. It's going to go to other renters and landlords in other states and districts. So I think that there are some senators who are interested in hearing that. I think there's some senators you're just never going to reach with anything that, how best to say this? I don't know, that seems to come from the federal government, I guess would be the best way to say that. But yeah, I think that they've been a little more convinced by the economic argument for that, specifically as it relates to the fact that there's what, $3 billion in existing ARPA requests right now for a little over $1 billion that the state has. And a lot of those requests would actually be covered by emergency rental assistance.
Oh, would they?
So, the Appropriations Committee sent a letter to the governor pointing that out and asking him to change his mind about this. And they also pointed out that if we took this money, it would sit in a state bank account and accrue interest to the tune of about $7 million, which would go straight into the general fund. So it would actually make the state money. It's hard to prove that sort of indirect infusion into the economy, but like, this is $7 million that you wouldn't otherwise have.
Right.
So
there are lots of bills that get discussed on the floor of the legislature that cost $7 million or less.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's important to Nebraskans as well. And I appreciate you so much taking the time to talk with us tonight. We're going to share information so that people can continue to follow you and your organization, Erin. But I will just say that your invitation to Nebraskans and people interested in policy to come to the eviction court at the Douglas County Courthouse, I have still been processing after attending that with you. And I can tell everybody, having watched firsthand the impact that these organizations and those dollars had on specific neighbors, right? Mm-hmm. Our Nebraska neighbors were able to stay in their homes because of your actions. And so I just think that it's important that people realize that when we're talking about these dollars and these evictions, they're real people and families with kids and grandparents and stories that are not easy.
Yeah. We had a letter of support. One of the letters of support that came in that I wasn't really expecting was a woman who was writing in from from outstate Nebraska and was talking about how much this had helped her mother, who was elderly, and I don't know the specific circumstances, but like this kept her from losing her home. We got a letter of support from the Dodge County Veterans Service Office talking about how important these dollars have been for vets in their community. You know, we got a lot of support from across the state from organizations who all said, you know, this is, if we don't do this, we're going to have to start telling people no. You know, we're going to have to start telling. We had a woman up at the Capitol with us today who was just an absolute dynamo from Grand Island, and she kept talking about how she's had, you know, do you want to sit in my office and tell this single mom with children that we can't help her and that she's going to be on the street? Because that's what we're going to have to do if we don't apply for this. So yeah, I mean, I think you're exactly right, Cindy. And you know, I'm incapable of accepting compliments. So I'll just say, like, I'm always happy to have people at eviction court with me, but you're exactly right. These are real people with real complicated struggles. It's never just, oh, they don't want to work or they're too lazy or something like that. Like they're really trying. They're trying very desperately to keep their homes. And, you know, I think all of us can understand the importance of having a roof over your head and how important it is to just your own life and your own stability and your own well-being and mental health and everything like that. And the idea of not being able to allow people to do that for reasons that are either misleading at best or false at worst. You know, it just seems like a lot of burden to bear. I wouldn't want to carry that burden forward. So,
well, we Nebraskans of good conscience want our neighbors to have a roof over their head, and they want our legislature to use their authority to make the governor do his job if he won't. Mm-hmm. So we're going to ask everyone to make sure and pick up the phone tonight and call their senator, and their senators won't be there. Just leave a message. Just leave a message. And what should they say? Please pass. It's not.
So the bill now is LB 1073 with Amendment 1969, and it will supposed to be coming up for debate tomorrow afternoon. They put the water bills, the canal project ahead of us, so that'll be great and fun. So support LB 1073 with AM 1969. Just say, you know, Nebraskans need this. We need rental and utility assistance. If you have personal experience, please share, you know, feel free to share that with your senators. If you have family or friends that have been impacted by this or who might be impacted by this, let them know too. While we're specifically dealing with the balance of state here, so everyone outside of Omaha and Lincoln, basically, it does impact Omaha and Lincoln as well, because we're about to run out of our emergency rental assistance probably by the end of September. And this could be a valuable lifeline for us as well. So we just need the chance to do it.
Yes, I hope they'll do the right thing. And, you know, we'll make sure and put the numbers in our chat boxes and things, you know, below this live stream. And make sure and everyone follow Erin on Twitter, because that's where she shares most of these stories. What is your Twitter handle, Erin?
This is like really bad because I chose it when I was, you know, young and didn't think I'd be. I was like tweeting like 7 academics, you know, in Chicago, and now I have this following. But it's at EMF Undertaker. One day I'll change it to something more professional, but for right now, that's what it is.
Well, I don't think anyone cares what the handle is. We just.
I know, but it's just one of those things.
Well, thank you. I know that you've been out all day in Lincoln and you have your family, and we just really appreciate you. And thanks for stopping tonight and talking with us.
Yeah. And if anybody has any questions, I mean, you all know how to reach me. Feel free to send people my way if they have questions.
Okay, great. Yep. Yeah. There's your Twitter handle.
There it is. There it is. That fun one. Great.
Thanks, Erin. Have a good night.
Bye-bye. So let's make sure in our information below that we share how to get in touch with your senator. Everyone can make sure and look up their senator in case they don't know. And just pick up the phone. Just a really quick voicemail tonight may help these senators understand how important this is to our neighbors and that everyday Nebraskans are watching.
Yeah. Yes, very important. Kristen, are you ready to come on? I'm so professional.
Yes.
Okay. I was like trying to watch and see if I could tell. So, okay. Yeah. Well, yeah, I appreciate Erin coming on because I know that she did have a long day. And thank you, Cindy, for all that great input and conversation. I know this is something that you've been following a lot from the beginning, and you've even gone down to the court, right? To the
Yes.
Eviction court.
I attended eviction court just to observe, and it is on my heart. And I attended the testimony at the Urban Affair Committee, and I know that Kristen was there as well and testified that day. And there was a whole room full of us. And the only opposition was from the governor's office. And there were like actual errors or incorrect statements that that person made. And it's just really sad that we have to go to these extreme lengths to ask the governor to do the right thing. So hopefully, we can prevail. Our senators will take up their authority and make this happen. And then, as we go forward, we need to make sure that we're focusing on electing people to represent everyday Nebraskans, including those of us that struggle with housing.
And so that is wanting them to contact their senator to say yes to, that's what, an LB 1073.
Yes.
With amendment. What's the amendment number?
1969.
So this
right?
bill is under Senator Wayne now, but the amendment was Senator Matt Hansen. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's 1969.
Put that up for everyone. All righty. Just wanted to get that up for everyone. Okay. So lots of things to kind of talk about that's been happening since we last kind of regrouped. I wanted to just kind of go through some of the bills that passed on and stuff, have kind of an open discussion about it, and then we can talk about some of the more big stuff too. But so like LB 888, which was Jen Day's Holocaust bill to ensure that education on the Holocaust was received, that advanced to select file. I was pretty impressed with that because it actually advanced like 44-0 was the vote.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
It's nice to have the whole legislature come together on something as important as that kind of education.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that there was some amendments and some discussion on like, other things that might be and whatever. So I think there's going to be some more discussion, but at least they're on a good, like, same kind of ground, same page to start with at least. Some of the committee hearings that we had, of course, eliminate the Board of Education from Linehan because she hates public schools. And then we had Stinner had I didn't write down the LB, but it's for some federal pandemic relief to go to dual enrollment programs. So like when kids in high school take college courses from the community colleges through their high schools, some of the money would go to help paying for that. I thought that was good.
I did see that one because the cost for those credits are 50% off the normal in-state rate, which is very affordable. But I think that bill would cover the cost completely. So those college credits would be at no cost to high school students.
Yeah, and I think that's super neat. My oldest daughter, she took advantage of that. And so she did some of them in there, but then she also like went to the community college. So she'll be graduating this May her high school diploma, but she'll also have an associate's at the same time. So, and she was able, with the dual programs, the ones that she took at school, she was able to get like grants and stuff to help out with the costs. So we were lucky in that aspect. But yeah, there was definitely always like this concern, like, I hope that the grants go through. I hope that she gets it, So it'd be nice to have more resources going to that. We appreciated that.
Well, and one thing just to kind of mention also that is related to that, which it's all connected, right? There were a few bills, at least one, that was brought forward by a senator that would introduce restrictions on teaching history and what they're calling CRT and things like that. And there's actually been information coming from I don't know the name of the term, but there's a board regarding AP accreditation. And it is going to potentially impact Nebraska schools that offer these courses. If the accreditation is pulled, kids can take the course, but they might not get the credit. So I think the senators will hopefully take that into account when they consider these bills. The ramifications go further than just some of the posturing that you hear. So I'm really keen on that because my kids are just entering into high school. And of course, they're really excited to be taking AP courses. And we are too, because we want them to save money.
Right.
We want them to learn, but save money.
Yeah. It's nice. But I mean, like Metro and our community colleges in Nebraska are like one of the best things that we have, because even in other states, they're a lot less affordable. So
do you mind, Angie, if I take a privilege to make a statement? I would like to say two things. First off, Erin Feichinger, that just joined us, is an exceptional representative on the Metro Board of Governors. And Kristen, who is one of our organizers, is running to be on the Board of Governors for Metro Community College. And we're just really proud of her and support her 150%. And I hope everyone watching will too.
Yes.
Yes, thank you for that, Cindy. Yes, the dual credit program is really really incredible. It helps, excuse me, with kids that aren't necessarily ready for or college bound for a 4-year traditional school. They're able to get, like you said, an associate's degree with their high school diploma, or just a head start on their transfer credits, or go to a vocational school and get a really career focused trade, and then be 20 years old and earning a good income and have good benefits too. So yes,
and it seems to really boost too, because I think it felt like when my oldest was applying for different grants and into different schools and stuff like that, she had that college coursework that she could, both from the AP classes, but then also from the classes that she took, because she also got a discount to just go to Metro separately. I guess high schoolers get discounted rates. So she did both, but being able to show that, I think helped her. I mean, it definitely didn't hurt her on her college applications and her grants and stuff. So
I mean, and as a junior, credit wise, yeah. And while tuition is so expensive, and we're not seeing relief from our student loan debt burdens, it's a good way to try to chip away at that and get your first 2 years at an affordable rate, or potentially free, and then only have 2 more years to pay for. So lots of good things.
Yeah. And it's good for Nebraska. I mean, it's good for our state that people get this education.
Yeah.
100%.
Senator McKinney, his innovation partnership bill advanced. So I think it's going into its final reading, LB 450. So that's the one that helps partner up techie innovation places with nonprofits, or private and nonprofits, I believe. So that's cool that passed. The Senator Lathrop's evaluation of prison and parole programs, the bill that would have evaluations of prison and parole programs, which we know is one of the problems that we're having with our overcrowded prison systems in Nebraska. Senator Lathrop introduced a bill for that, and that passed. So that's rolling forward to select file. So yay, we got some good things happening in there. Wanted to make sure we started out with that since we're going to roll into all the bad now. So as I said,
Oh, I'm sorry, Angie.
Oh no, go for it. Interrupt.
Senator Gragert's bill regarding soil health.
Yes.
That also was a positive. Yes, that passed. I'm not sure how far we are in, if that's to final reading yet or not, but that's another one that looks like it's progressing well and will have a really good benefit to the state.
That one will have a really good benefit to the state. That one basically says, it basically acknowledges that farmers listen to other farmers better than farmers listen to, the specialists at wherever, so what it does is it puts some funding and money into farmers teaching other farmers about their experiences with regenerative agriculture or soil health, things like that. That could definitely be huge for us, because I think that Nebraska could lead the way in regenerative agriculture, and our farmers could be the hero of like saving us from climate change. But so that's a good step towards that. Okay, so one of the big things that happened since we last all kind of met that obviously we have to touch on is Grony. So Grony got caught taking pictures of his legislative staffer. She complained she was moved. She's working for a different legislative aide. I don't know. The whole thing was messed up. So like Senator Patty Pansing Brooks, I believe, is the only woman on the executive board, right? Or on the rules. Which one was it?
The executive board also has Senator Slama and Senator Geist. So
she's the only senior. That's what she was saying. Right. The only senior legislative woman or whatever that was on the board. And she was like struggling to get information, or she didn't find out about it, whatever. The staffer ended up going to the news. The news broke it. And it was like the fastest thing that ever happened. It went from the pictures weren't inappropriate to I got to talk to, what was it, the chair or something, to I'm resigning like within 24 hours or something.
Yeah.
So Grony obviously resigned. And so it'll be Governor Ricketts that gets to appoint someone. Do we have
He did.
thoughts? He did appoint.
So the man, I think it's Jacobson.
Mike Jacobson.
Yeah. So it sounds like that gentleman actually considered running in the fall. But he's a banker, and their bank had an opportunity for an acquisition or something. And, he determined that he would just postpone running for legislature. And then apparently that acquisition may have not gone immediately forward. And so he was available, and I think got in touch with the governor, and because that surprised me. I didn't know how to expect or who to expect. The governor, like who he would actually appoint. He did not pick one of the current people that had already filed, because there were several people that had already filed for that position. But I really hope that they put a task force on this. An investigation is taking place, and I hope that they come forward not just to help this person that had experienced this harassment from Senator Grony, but I hope that they will put in place policies to help all the people that work at the legislature, because they're our neighbors, and the legislature hires these staff on our behalf. And I think that they need to do a better job with their hiring and employment practices, and making sure to protect people from these types of situations. And it's not just from a risk standpoint that we should be worried about this. We want these employees to do their best work on our behalf. And so they should be supported in an environment that is not filled with these types of, harassment and bullies and things like that. It just is beneath the legislature that this has not been handled better to this point. And I hope that they'll take advantage of this time and just get it done. Fix it.
Yeah. Well, and in the days following, just to hear pretty much all of the women in the legislature speak out too about, you know, the harassment and the sexism that they are confronted with working there. You know, even Senator Slama got up and talked about inappropriate touch and, you know, things like that. So, yeah, obviously it's something that needs to be worked on, and it goes much deeper than just Senator Groney.
I think that the investigator or that group will actually have something put together before the end of the session. That sounded like that would be
Good.
the expectation. So I'm going to be optimistic. Let's try to be optimistic.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think, and Cindy, I think maybe you were mentioning this. They were Michaela Kavanaugh and maybe Senator Hunt as well. We're talking about the current procedures for staff to report harassment, and that was basically to go to the chair of the executive committee. But how intimidating that is for a female staffer to go to Senator Hughes and tell, report something that their boss and potentially his peer, maybe his friend, had done, and then just the concern that not being taken seriously and all of those concerns. So I know they'll be taking that into account, designing a new framework to go forward.
Yep. Sorely needed. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and long overdue, it sounds like. Yeah, so I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about some of these structural changes because that kind of leads into that conversation. And I think, so Cindy, who's running for the legislature, you just had a interview podcast with Midwest Misfits that we'll have to make sure we link up here for those that want to listen in. But when I was listening to you on that podcast, when I was listening to you talk, one of the things that I just, even though we've been friends for a while and I know your ideas and stuff, sometimes I hear you talk and I just feel like inspired or in awe of you. And that was one of those moments, because one of the things that you constantly talk about is how to change the structure of the state legislature so that it's better working for the people of Nebraska. And I think that a lot of times as advocates, as activists, as people that are running, as everyday folks, we think so much about the issues, and so we talk about our hot button issues, human rights, education, property taxes, all these things. But one of the things that I just like and think that it's going to be so great once you're in the legislature is that you're going to look for actual structural changes or changes that need to occur in the legislature in order for us to even address any of those other issues. So I wanted to bring up and kind of give you an opportunity, because I think that it very much relates to this conversation here. So some of the things that you talked about was pay. Like the legislature, the state senators get paid, what is it, $12,000 a year, I think, or 13? It's crappy.
$1,000 a month.
Yeah. So, and so you want to kind of talk about your thoughts on that, about, I don't want to repeat, because I could repeat what you said, but about recruiting people and how that's a limit to accessibility and all of that. You want to share with us your thoughts on that?
I could go on, so I'll try to be brief. I feel so strongly about this, Angie, and you know that we've talked about it quite often. To have people even consider running for legislature. There are so many amazing people that would be great state senators for their district, but they're not able to even consider it because the pay is so low, and many people cannot fathom leaving their current position or taking a leave of absence for a few months during the year and only be receiving $1,000 a month. It's just not doable. And if you think about the people who have daycare or elder care expenses, those types of things, it's just impossible to do it on that type of pay structure. And so we're limited to people who are in a position to do that. And then you're talking about privilege, and you're talking about people who maybe, like so many senators seem to be, retired or, in a position like that. And we're losing what we're not gaining is something I should go from that viewpoint. What we're not gaining is the perspective of younger senators, people who have younger families. We need people who understand what it's like to be just coming, into their career and taking off, as opposed to in the sunset of their careers, because they're different issues. And we need to concentrate on how we can bring people to our state and retain them, because this brain drain that we're facing, companies can't find enough employees right now. They can't find good employees. There are not enough employees to fill all the jobs in Nebraska. I mean, tens of thousands of jobs are going unfilled right now. And so we really need to focus on how we can fix these issues. And it is more than property taxes.
Yeah.
There's so much more that we need to do. And so I do have to talk about Senator Tony Vargas's bill, because I think it was something that would have solved this issue had the senators taken the steps and just gone ahead and given themselves a raise, because I think that was part of the issue. Some people maybe hesitated. But his idea was to tie the pay of state senators to the median income for the state. And so the pay would have moved with how well Nebraskans are faring on average. And so that, to me, seemed like a really smart way to approach it, because it would be based on actual data and real life experience of most of Nebraskans, as opposed to just like a random number that we would pick out of a hat and say, oh, we think senators are worth $20,000 a year or $50,000 a year,
right?
Or $100,000. And it would make it,
because then kind of the better we do, the better they do.
Yeah, it would just make it more doable for everyday Nebraskans to entertain this idea, consider it, put their name in the hat. And I think the more people that run, the better representation we're going to have. And we do need better representation in our state. We're watching it happen, it's playing out in front of us every day right now. We're watching the legislature, and we're at the end of the session. We only have, and I look at this, I'm the nerd who looks at the number that we're facing every day. We're on the 38th day out of a 60-day session. And they have big issues to address, including an unprecedented amount of ARPA dollars, funds that are infused into the state that we could be making transformative change.
Right.
They're not getting there. I mean, we're going to run out of time. And they're not even, I think, going to be able to reach all the priority bills. So that's frustrating to me. And I am excited to see how not only the session will end, but, what kinds of changes might happen with the elections this next year.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's, so I feel like you're going to work on the things that lead to the barriers to even being able to get stuff done. And I appreciate that about you. I know with the transparency and making sure that folks are participating, I think that you are more modest than you should be when it comes to seeing LB 777 get placed on the priority bill. I know you talked to Senator Brewer, you spoke with the clerk, or is it the clerk, or who's you spoke with everybody. And the next thing we know, even I love your push, and of course I support you. I think we all do, so when you're hey, do this, I'm definitely, I was, making the emails and the calls you had requested. But in my head, I was kind of nobody is going to take this as seriously as you are. I kind of, not that I want to say that I didn't believe in you, but I kind of thought oh, Cindy's going to be real disappointed when nobody cares about this. You know what I mean? And then, but you just were in there and you made sure that they cared. You made sure that they had an understanding of, why it was important. And then you didn't just let them brush it off. And I believe you played a huge part in actually getting LB 777 advanced to a priority bill from the speaker. That definitely probably would not have occurred without the work that you did. And I just think that that's impressive. And I think that that's one of the reasons that you're going to be like an awesome member of the legislature, but then also one of the reasons that we just really appreciate you here as one of the co-founders, organizers of the study group, is because you just keep us all with that push. So I wanted to make sure that we had the opportunity to get that out there.
I appreciate that. I really do. And I think, though, that we do need to keep in mind that there were so many people that testified that day for LB 777. And I think Senator Brewer was surprised. And so was the exec board at how many people, really see how this could be an amazing way to educate Nebraskans about what's happening with the legislature and make sure that we can be involved. And the range of people that testified were from across the spectrum, and they included, people from the Platt Institute, the Civic Nebraska, many organizations that came and testified. And I know that is the difficulty for the clerk of the legislature. I think he testified in neutral capacity, but he had a lot of concerns. And I think, though, that the senators can work with him and make this happen. The sad thing is if we don't take advantage of this opportunity this year and we go back to the drawing board next year with the new biennium, right? We have new senators, we have new committees, new chairs. We start from scratch. And I just think that the legislators can come together and make this happen. There's bipartisan support. And I don't know how much of a role I played. I was definitely very vocal, but I was excited when I was in the hallway at the legislature, what was it, like a week or two ago? And I was there about ranked choice voting, which is another thing I'm super excited about. And I happened to see Senator Brewer's aide in the hallway, and he kind of motioned me over. And when he told me the news about Speaker Hilgers making this priority bill, we gave each other a high five. And I think that it is a good thing that people from various backgrounds can work together to try to make things better for Nebraskans. And this having an archive of video recordings of the legislature, floor debate, and committee hearings will make a big difference for everyday Nebraskans. So, sure. I'm excited. Yeah. I hope we move forward. I really do. It just should, to me, be a matter of like technical details and not details, about the actual idea.
Not the will. Yeah, I think the will is there.
I hope so.
Yeah. And Cindy, you're exactly right. It just expands access to people who are able to participate in government. And, if you're busy working during the day, like many Nebraskans are, you're not able to watch or pay attention. So when there's something you're interested in, it's so nice to know you can just skip right and go to the video, skip right to what you want to see, and then you're informed.
Yeah, well, and it does, especially like I've been working a lot more days and I've been watching live a lot less. And in the evenings, you might be tired, you might want to catch up, but you can skip through all the like mumbling of the bill, blah, 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 blah. You can like skip through all of that stuff. You can get to like the important part. It cuts down on time. Like it's super, super fantastic that we have that available. There's Cindy and her husband, Fred, back there who helped make that happen. And so, it definitely helps. Speaking of, and we might run a little bit late tonight since we started a little bit late. But I wanted to make sure that we got a few things mentioned. Speaking of, I had it pulled up. Speaking of super cool things that our organizers help do, we have LR 317 that is, let me pull it up here. I had it up. Okay, so LR 317 is a resolution that would make, I believe it's October of 2022. It would recognize that as Spina Bifida Awareness Month. Super proud of our co-organizer, Quentin, for bringing that up and taking it to the senators. And I believe a couple of senators were supportive of them on that, but Senator Blood is the one that actually ended up presenting the resolution. So we want to make sure that we ask our membership to send out quick emails to their state senator and ask them to sign on to LR 317 for Spina Bifida Awareness Month in October of 2022. Good job, Quentin. We're proud of you.
I think there were actually several senators that signed on with that. So
yeah,
this young man to come forward and create this resolution and bring it to the senators. I think it's one of the best things ever.
Yeah. So Coulterman has added their name onto it. ARC has added their name onto it. I'm presume more senators will be, and I know that because I know that there was more than one senator that was even willing to take up the the resolution. So he did a good job on that. Okay, and then finally, we need to discuss kind of the ending events of today, which is Senator Brewer has created or put a poll motion up for LB 773, the permitless carry one. So the one that would allow you to carry guns and weapons without a permit or training, right? It feels so weird to even say that because, like, okay, I've never been around, but when I was a teenager, we faced gun violence in our family. I had one uncle that committed suicide, and I had two more uncles that were shot, leaving one of them quadriplegic. It like changed our whole life around. So even though I grew up in Grant, Nebraska, where, you know, it was very gun culture, lots of people hunted, you know, whatever. I've never been, guns have always kind of scared me a little. I've never wanted to be around them. And so when I think about, like, I could just go out and get a gun, like me right now, I have no business with a gun, no business. I don't know what I'm doing. I've never held one. I've never looked at one, but if I wanted to, I could just go out and get a gun, and they want to make that even easier. And it's just weird to me.
Yeah. And it's the you know, kind of how I look at it is it's not that much to ask to pass a background check if you want to carry a loaded weapon into public. It becomes a public safety concern, and that's kind of where our rights, our individual rights, sort of get you know, end or get restricted when that infringes on other people's right to be safe. So that's a concern, you know, the background check as well as the gun safety class and that training, and it's between 8 and 16 hours. It's not a lot to ask to know that someone can operate a firearm safely, and then also store it safely. And we know, you know, school shootings, when minors get their hands on weapons, it's from an adult not being responsible with their firearm and not storing it safely. So that it's just kind of, in my mind, a common sense regulation that we would really like to see kept in place.
Yeah.
And yeah, as I say, I'm not maybe totally up to date. I'm not if Omaha is carved out of the amendment with an amendment. It may be. I know it was last year in the version because there was some opposition. So
wait, yeah, isn't that why he brought it back, was to not carve it out because they decided, like, either it's a right or it's not a right?
No, Omaha Police Department actually opposed this legislation, and I think that was part of what has been working on with the amendment, is that that Omaha is carved out. So the regulations, I do not believe, will change.
I thought that's why it was brought back, because the first time it was.
So yeah, Angie, last year it was at the county level. So that bill would give counties the option to opt out of the state law, but it did exclude the three most populous counties, Douglas, Sarpy, and Lancaster. But the Attorney General decided that it's a state level law and counties don't have the authority to decide if they want to opt in or out. So then that's what brought her back, and it was the whole state. But I guess there's been a development. So if it's maybe, I know Omaha is the metropolitan class, the largest city. So maybe at the city that was able to fly with the attorney general's opinion. I would assume they would get that at this point, but maybe that will be a hang up again. So I don't know.
I think one of the difficulties about this bill, and I mean, obviously I was just praising Senator Brewer a moment ago regarding a different bill. And this is the thing, we're not going to all agree. No one's going to agree with everybody all the time. And I don't really talk about this a lot, but I think more people need to. We are gun owners, and my husband has a concealed carry permit. And he didn't think that it was an onerous thing to do. I mean, onerous, you know what I mean? He didn't think it was too much. He thought that it was not even, a difficult thing to ask, that you take a class and that you fill out paperwork and that you complete the process. That if, that was what was required, it really wouldn't be something that most people can overcome. Now, if the price of the permit is an issue, I think the senators could work something out. And do we have to charge? I don't know. I wouldn't care if the permit was free, if people would complete it and they would complete the training. I mean, for me, I would rather have that than no regulation. So I'm hoping that the senators can either work a way to make this reasonable regarding common sense regulation on gun ownership, or that they would strike it down. It just seems to me that it's just it's scary to think that just anybody and everybody, no regulations.
The reasons that are some of the reasons that are being stated as to, why we need to not have the classes or the permits is because, one, funding. So they're using low income people, and they're saying that, in order to have to pay to take this class or get these permits, it's excluding low income people. That's kind of weird to me, because in my head, I'm like, if I don't have the money for a permit, I don't have the money for a gun. And I'm very big on, just because you're poor doesn't mean you shouldn't be able to have things you want. You know what I mean? But like, at the same time, I'm just like, you definitely want to be, I just don't think that that's actually, I've never heard anybody say, well, I wish I could get a gun, but I just can't afford the permit. Like I've been around a lot of people that own guns. I grew up in Western Nebraska. I've known a lot of poor people. That's just never been anything that's been said to me. Another reason that, they like to bring up is because of women, right? Like us women, we need to be able to go out and get guns. We might not be able to wait to take the trainings and whatever, because we might need these guns right now to protect ourselves from men. I think that's a scare tactic. Again, I've worked with several women of abuse. I've been a survivor myself, and it's never been like, oh, there's lots of problems with it, but that just doesn't seem to be the priority. It drives me nuts when they're like, oh, it's poor people and it's women. I think that the only legit thing that I've kind of heard, and I believe it was Senator McKinney that kind of hinted around to these concerns, was that, oftentimes things like this are used as just a way to put extra charges against people of color, generally Black men, to just kind of add to their charges. It's used against them inappropriately. Like, I think that I would totally want to find a way to circumvent that, to make sure that that is not happening. But I just don't think this law is what will do it. I do think that it has garnered more support maybe than we would like for it to garner. So I think that it's important that our membership contact their senators and tell them, to vote no for this. Because I think it actually, I feel like it stands a chance of passing, and that's concerning.
The greatest amount of death due to gun violence in Nebraska is self-inflicted. And that's, I think, something that these senators need to also take into account, that, do we really want there not to be any training, any permit process? It just, to me, seems like we need to be watching out, especially for our neighbors that are struggling. And, there was Senator McCavanagh had like bracelets she brought in today. I think it was the Kim Foundation that has been at this Unicameral, just sharing information about suicide prevention and awareness. And I think that that's something that we should focus on is mental health. I wish we had our priorities a little bit straighter.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Alrighty. Well, it is about 5 after 9. So I wanted to remind everybody that we have our next candidate interview on March 15th at 7 o'clock. That'll be with Sarah Slattery. Brooklyn has been doing an excellent job getting those interviews in there, so make sure you tune in. That's at 7 o'clock live on our public page and our group page. And then
I don't know if you can.
Cindy's modeling our swag.
Yes. And then you can head on over to www.anylegislativestudygroup.com and check out our swag. We have some t-shirts and a mug and a hoodie. I would model my hoodie, but I wore my hoodie to work at Shealytown today and I forgot it there. So, so I'm sad. I'll have to wait to get it. And then
Good to talk to you.
Hold on. I wanted to acknowledge and honor one more thing. And it's kind of a difficult transition. There's probably no good way to transition, but we want to honor and acknowledge the death of a advocate and activist that many of our fellow Nebraskans and study group members knew. His name was Milo Winslow. I did not know him. I have friends that know him, and I just wanted to, I guess, kind of acknowledge the pain that the LGBTQ community and the activist community, particularly in the Lincoln area, is feeling right now. And I know that I don't have the right words. Natalie Weiss has some TikToks up that I will share under the thread because I think that she expresses what needs to be heard much better than I ever could. So I will lift up her voice in ways that we can honor Milo. So, and we will also share resources for suicide prevention and awareness, as well as links that specifically can help with the trans community. And to all of our trans community members and our trans study group members, know that you are loved. We see you, we appreciate you, and we stand with you. Any final thoughts? Okay. All righty. Well, thank you, ladies. And you all have a good night.
Yeah. Thank you for all you do, Angie. Yeah, have a good night.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.